In 2016, David Bowie released his final album Blackstar, an album seemingly full of many mysterious and semiotic references, described by NME as ambiguous and spellbinding. But what did it all mean? Indeed, at the time of recording, David Bowie had been suffering with terminal cancer, and it may be suggested that the lyrical and visual content of the album alluded to this. However, as much as this may be true on a superficial level, it may be suggested that Blackstar was the final piece to conclude his lifetime of artistic vision, of self-integration, or eros gamos. Throughout his career, David Bowie weaved a number of philosophical and occultist concepts into his art, such as the Kabbalah, alchemy, Gnosticism, and Jungian psychology, in such a way that it suggested he was seeking something higher, or indeed to bring about his own Magnum Opus. Moreover, it may be suggested he was attempting to enlighten humanity through visual and musical semiotics, rather than pure exposition. A common thread which permeated all of these diverse systems, as well as the goal of self-unification, was the Jungian concept of archetypes. We are first able to recognize signs of Jungian influence on Bowie's art in his early works, which in many ways act as an exposition for the rest of his career. The 1971 track, The Shadow Man, can be seen as a direct reference to Carl Jung's theory on the shadow or personal unconscious. The song acknowledges the polarity of the conscious and unconscious, supporting the notion that the two must be unified for balance. It can be suggested that this is perhaps the early stage of David acknowledging the use of archetypal figures, in that he has laid down a foundation of understanding, or indeed a key for interpreting his work. In 1987, Bowie described the glass spiders from his track Never Let Me Down as Jungian figures, and in 1999, he described himself as quite Jungian while discussing integrating his dreams into reality. As Tanya Stark suggests, Bowie personally struggled to integrate opposites. He was torn between the light and the dark, and thus he found a roadmap in the life of Carl Jung. The many faces of David Bowie are a standout feature of his work, and their significance often mysterious. But bearing in mind his interest in Jungian psychology, it is possible to look at his characters from the lens of the archetype. Jung contended that the unconscious mind was composed of fragmented parts or themes, which could be personified and ascribed as archetypes, such as the shadow, the self, the hero, or the trickster. The unification of these parts, along with the marriage of the conscious to the unconscious, was the desired goal. In this light, we can begin to examine Bowie's alter egos as archetypes of his or the collective unconscious. Furthermore, we can add weight to this concept by drawing parallels with the teachings of a number of religious, occult, and esoteric systems, which all emerge at points during Bowie's work. Many of Carl Jung's concepts derived from his studies of Gnosticism, the Tarot, alchemy, and Kabbalah. The Eugonastos is a Gnostic tractate which was discovered in Egypt in 1945 and taught the transcendental and unseen nature of things, and is said to have derived from Egyptian mythology. The text describes the concept of the supercelestial realm and the one whose existence precedes all others. It describes the individuation of this being into other deities, which include the immortal man, who with his consort Sophia created the saviour, begetter of all things. Essentially, this formed a trinity, which created other beings, such as angels and archangels. According to Parrot, this part of the Eugonastos is comparable to Ursite patterns found in the Theban theology in the Ramesside period. like with Jungian archetypes, Douglas Parrott suggested that the intention of the author of the Eugonastos was to highlight that the structure of the cosmos was determined by the invisible, and that in reality this super-celestial realm was developed from primal mind. Furthermore, the deities who occupied this realm were in fact different aspects of that mind. In Jewish mysticism, we can observe similarities in terms of the individuation of the unknowable Godhead in the form of the Sephiroth, which in the Kabbalistic tree of life are the 10 manifestations of God. The Zohar also identifies a divine realm, which is androgynous, comprising Tiferet and Shekinah. There is an observable common theme of androgyny within the Gnostic, Kabbalistic, Christian and Jungian belief systems. The immortal man of the Eugonastos is described as an androgynous being and therefore has a female name also, which is all-wise Begetress Sophia. We can also observe a similar concept in Christianity in that Jung identifies the symbol of Christ as the most highly developed and differentiated symbol of the self. However, he suggests that the self is a perfect union of opposites, and that the androgyny of Christ is the utmost concession that the Church has made to the problem of opposites. In the Jewish texts, the Zohar and the Talmud, it is suggested that God, and indeed the first manifestation of Adam, were created male and female, and that the correct Hebrew translation from Genesis would be, "On the day that God created Adam, in the likeness of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. He blessed them and called their name Adam, on the day they were created." Adam, by partaking in the tree of good and evil, effectively polarized and divided the conscious from the unconscious. This sin meant that Adam's androgynous nature had been lost. So now we are in a better position to look at David Bowie's methodology. It can be observed that Gnosticism, Jewish mysticism, Egyptian mythology, alchemy, and Jungian psychology all share common themes. This common thread being the concept of deities or archetypes as divided parts of the mind or super-celestial realm. Fragmentation and polarity often featuring, highlighting that the common goal of all these systems was unification, whether it be achieved by moving along the Kabbalistic tree of life, through Jungian alchemy or psychotherapy, enlightenment, and so on. The work of Aleister Crowley appears to sum up this concept nicely in his interpretation of the nursery rhyme Humpty Dumpty, in that Humpty Dumpty represents the egg of spirit, and that the wall of the abyss, his fall, is therefore the descent of spirit into matter.